I'd rather see the Republican win, but I'd rather see a Republican writein. I couldn't vote for Roy Moore. I didn't vote for Roy Moore. There's a tipping point. When it got to the 14-year-old story, that was enough for me. It's been one hell of a season for this Trump show. Around 5:30 each morning, President Trump wakes and tunes into ... CNN for news, moves to Fox Friends for comfort and messaging ideas, and sometimes watches MSNBC's Morning Joe because Friends suspect it fires him up for the day. Trump spends at least 4 hours a day, and sometimes as much as twice that, in front of a television, sometimes with the volume muted. Watching cable, he shares thoughts with anyone in the room, even the household staff he summons via a button for lunch or for one of the dozen Diet Cokes he consumes each day. Trump is an avid newspaper reader who still marks up a half-dozen papers with comments in black Sharpie pen. Steve Bannon has told allies that Mr. Trump only reads to reinforce. As he ends his first year in office, Mr. Trump is redefining what it means to be president. He sees the highest office in the land as a prize he must fight to protect every waking moment, and Twitter is his Excalibur. Despite all his bluster, he views himself less as a titan dominating the world stage than a maligned outsider engaged in a struggle to be taken seriously. Trump still takes shots at Mark Cuban, a fellow rich guy reality star, and expresses disappointment that Tom Brady has distanced himself. After dinner, he sometimes hate-watches CNN to get worked up, especially Don Lemon. In between, it is time for phone calls. In recent weeks, Mr. Trump's friends have noticed a different pitch, acknowledging that many aides and even his own relatives could be hurt by Mr. Mueller's investigation. As for himself, he has adopted a surprisingly fatalistic attitude. It's life, he said of the investigation. From there it is off to bed for what usually amounts to 5 or 6 hours of sleep. Get your Sharpie out. P.S. The article has this footnote: Glenn Thrush contributed to this article before he was suspended pending the result of an investigation into allegations of inappropriate behavior. Matt Apuzzo also contributed reporting. Tech stocks led the market for most of this year with a gain of 35%, helped by an even more powerful rally in the so-called FANGs: Facebook, Amazon.com, Netflix, and Google, owned by Alphabet. At 17.7 times next year's estimated earnings, tech valuations aren't cheap, but they're well below valuations in the dot-com era, and underlying earnings growth is strong. Why it matters: it amounts to a massive corporate tax cut, with uneven and temporary benefits for the middle class that could end up increasing taxes for many working families in future years. TikTok on how it happened. Trump said HES already signed 88 pieces of legislation. We get no credit. In 10 months we've passed more during this period of time than any other president in the history of our country, and the second, let's call runner-up, is Harry Truman. Trump's first year legislative record pales next to that of a variety of presidents. Franklin Roosevelt, with his New Deal, signed 14 historic laws in his first 100 days. The tax package Trump may soon sign would mark his first major legislative achievement. Trump recounted a conversation with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about trade. He said, "I'm telling you that Canada has a deficit with the United States. We actually have a $17 billion deficit with Canada." Trudeau is right that the US has a trade surplus with Canada. Trump said his critics don't want to accept the results of an election where we won by a landslide. His winning margin in the Electoral College is far closer to the narrowest win in history than to the widest. Trump: since the election, we have created more than $5 trillion in new economic wealth just in the stock market alone. We're not including real estate and other values. $5 trillion. According to the Federal Reserve, household wealth has risen by about $5 trillion since the end of last year, but that figure does include home values. Trump: you know, we have factories pouring back into our country. Spending on the construction of factories has dropped 14% over the past 12 months. There has been a steady decline in spending on factory construction since the middle of 2015. The existing manufacturing sector, though, has been doing a steady dose of hiring. This appears to reflect the synchronized global growth. Trump: by the way, wages starting to go up. First time in 20 years. The latest jobs report shows average hourly earnings up 2.5% over the past 12 months, roughly the same pace of growth as the year before. The backdrop: Moore has been accused of sexual misconduct by 9 different women, including one who alleges he inappropriately touched her when she was 14 years old, but HES largely regained Republican support ahead of Election Day. More from Young: I highly doubt there will be a Senate investigation. If there is, Judge Moore will be found telling the truth, just like he always has. I need you people in Alabama not the fall for all the false allegations that just appeared 3 or 4 weeks ago. Alabama's other senator, Richard Shelby: the Senate's going to have to weigh, if Roy Moore wins, his fitness to serve, on CNN's State of the Union. Democrat Rep. Terry Sewell of Alabama: listen, the state of Alabama voted for this president by 28 points. The fact that we're closed and narrowed into a statistical dead heat is really important. When the president called on Weigel to apologize and added visual evidence of the crowd size, Weigel promptly apologized for his error. At David Weigel at Washington Post put out a phony photo of an empty arena hours before I arrived at the venue. Thousands of people outside, on their way in. Real photos now shown as I spoke. Packed house, many people unable to get in. Demand apology, retraction from fake news. Wapopic.twitter.com Shabelfwanob Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump December 9, 2017. Sure thing, I apologize. I deleted the photo after it. DeMartosco told me it gotten it wrong. Was confused by the image of you walking in the bottom right corner. https://t.cofquai7 Gmnad, Dave Weigel at David Weigel December 9, 2017. President Trump will record a robocall for Roy Moore that will reach Alabama voters the day before the election, Politico reports. Why it matters: Trump is all in, and his support could convince some Republicans to go to the polls. That's key, as turnout in special elections is typically very low. The advisor for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said Abbas would not meet with Vice President Mike Pence during his trip to the Middle East this month. He said America has crossed all red lines. This isn't contained to just Israel. The anger spread around the world to other Muslim-majority nations, the BBC reports. For BBC, the United States was isolated at the UN Security Council meeting on Friday, as the 14 other members condemned the United States decision.